So you just started rock climbing, and you're ready to go pro. But you still don't know the ins and outs, you don't know the terminology, you don't know the culture, you don't know what's going on. You might even be wondering, what's this? What's this strange white substance I have on my jacket here? This is called chalk. You've probably never heard of it before. That's Dr. Pepper I spilled earlier, and that's Papa John's. And you might be asking yourself, who am I? Right? Who's this guy standing up here trying to tell me what to do? Well, I'm not a pro climber, but I like to think I'm pretty good at dynos, aka jumping. And I'm a pretty decent static climber, aka not jumping, just a regular rock climb. It's the thing you normally see. And today I'm going to guide you through what to expect in your first year of rock climbing, starting with technique and style. Now, two of the main categories for rock climbing style are static and dynamic climbing. Although realistically, you don't need to worry about this in your first year. You're not gonna have any idea if you're a static or a dynamic climber in your first year. People might tell you that they're a dynamic climber because they're always jumping and slapping the holds on the wall and blowing out their shoulders. But realistically, 9 times out of 10, this is just because they're not strong enough to climb it regularly. So instead, we're going to focus on the different types of walls you're going to be climbing on and the styles that go along with them. And basically, there are only 3 categories of walls you'll climb on. Any wall that's leaning forward all the way up to about 0 degrees is slab climbing. 0 degrees, slowly overhanging to about 45 degrees. That's my personal opinion. We call that just, there's no name for it, it's just climbing. That's just rock climbing. 45 degrees or more all the way up till you're just actually hanging on a roof is overhang climbing. And I know what you're thinking. Slab climbing is definitely the easiest. Wrong. Slab climbing fucking sucks. You see, in rock climbing, difficulty is relative. You can't just take a climb leaning back and lean it forward and have it be the same difficulty. No. You could take an impossible climb that's leaning back 45 degrees, lean it forward, and it would be considered a beginner boulder. You see, to make the difficulty consistent on slab climbs, they make the hold small, they make the feet that you're standing on these tiny little things you can barely see, and you've been climbing in the same shoes for 2 years, so you have holes and your toenail scrapes on it and it rips your fucking toenail off. Slab climbing sucks. And when you go climbing for the first time, you might have no idea which one you naturally fit into because everybody's different. Everyone has a different preference. Everyone's body is different. You're gonna find a certain wall speaks to you. You might get on the 45 degree and love hanging and dangling and climbing up. Maybe you'll like something a little more neutral, maybe just a little bit like 5 degrees overhung, leaning back a little bit. You like the cool complex motions. Maybe you'll even like slab. Fuck you. My advice to you would be to just try everything, just have fun. These are your golden years, okay? It never gets any better than this. The first year of rock climbing is as good as it's ever gonna be. Realistically, you're probably thinking, as I get stronger, I'll do harder and harder stuff. Rock climbing is just gonna get more fun, right? Wrong. Strength and happiness in rock climbing are proportionally inverse, meaning the stronger you get, the more miserable you become. You start training harder, climbing harder, doing cooler and cooler stuff, and slowly you just get to the point that you want to end it all, and that's why people free solo. Now, besides different types of walls, the other thing you have to look for in rock climbing is the different types of holds you'll be using. And the most common hold, everybody's favorite hold, is the jug. You see a nice pair of jugs on a wall, you just want to, you want to grab them and do a dyno on them, you know what I'm talking about? Besides that, the second most common holds you're going to run into are crimps. Those little things, they suck at first. Eventually, they're not so bad. It just takes time. You got pockets. Nobody really cares about these. Pinches and slopers. These two specifically are kind of the outcasts of the climbing holds. People will just avoid these their entire career, right? Like, you tell somebody to do a sloper problem, they're like, sloper? I hardly know her. This is probably the main stylistic bad habit I see is people will avoid climbing styles that they aren't naturally good at. So if somebody's good at overhang, they will never do slab, and vice versa. If you like pinches, you might never use crimps. If you like pockets, you might never eat hot pockets. There's all kinds of things people will avoid, and the problem is you end up getting really good. You start climbing like V7 or V9, but you can't do the V3 slab boulder. And you might be wondering what V3 or V9 means, which leads to our next section, grades. Now, if you've been to the gym before, you've probably seen these little tags all over the place that say things like VO or VBF. I don't know who this VO guy is, but he must be popular. Well, the way we determine the difficulty of a boulder problem is with grades. In the United States, we use something called the V scale. It goes from V0 to V10, 0 being the easiest, and 10 being the hardest. And I know some people are gonna sneak into this video watching even though it's not for them, and they're gonna be like, hey, the V scale goes all the way up to V17. What are you talking about? First of all, get out of here. This video is for beginners. Second of all, most gyms don't even set over V10. If it's your first year climbing, you don't gotta worry about any grades outside of these. You really don't even have to worry about anything above like V7. And if for some reason you're watching this video and you are in your first year of climbing and you're like, hey, I just sent my first V10, I'm trying to get advice on, V11 and up. Go fuck yourself. I hate you. And grades are a pretty controversial topic in rock climbing. People have all different kinds of opinions on them, but you're gonna run into a lot of people that are like, don't worry about grades, man. Go with the flow, have fun, don't read the grade. Just get on whatever you feel like and climb and have good. I didn't worry about grades in high school, and now I'm illiterate. Realistically, it doesn't really matter that much. If you don't like the grading system or caring about grades, then don't. For me, grades are about 99% of the fun in rock climbing. They kind of make it like a video game. Like each time you send a boulder that's a higher grade, it's like leveling up, right? You're like, I'm level V2 now. I can cast fireball. That being said, just don't go around bragging about the grades that you climb, especially when you're a beginner, really ever, because you could find out that your gym grades soft, which means that the grade that they put on it is actually a lot higher than how hard it actually is. So you might think, you're like a V5 climber, go around to a new gym flexing on everybody that you climb V5 and find out that you can't even do a V3 in this gym. That sure would be really embarrassing. I'm glad that never happened to me. Typically though, the bigger and more commercial the gym, the softer the grading. So if you're in like Chicago, where you have like these massive gym complexes, your boulders are probably soft as fuck. Really, if you want to go to a gym that grades accurately, you got to find like one of those gyms that looks like a sex dungeon, right? Where you walk in and you can just smell the asbestos in the air. You know you're in the right place. And my advice to you, if you're just starting off and you really like bouldering, is to go outside a little bit. Try some outdoor climbing. I know it might not be super enticing at first. The gym's pretty fun, but there's a lot of cool things about going outside. One of those being that the boulders are permanent. So if you send a V2 outside, you permanently locked it in. You've sent a V2. Nobody can take that away from you. And eventually all outdoor bouldering is just going to become indoor bouldering anyway, because, I have a business plan in the future of going to all the most iconic bouldering spots and building massive compounds around them. So I can then charge people to come inside if they want to boulder on some of the most famous boulders of all time. And don't worry, we will have like those big stadium roofs that open and close, but if you want some sunshine, you want the real outdoor experience, it costs extra. That's the future of climbing that I dream of. But I do understand if you're not really interested in outdoor climbing. That's kind of like a new push that's happening right now. Rock climbing is growing very quickly. And it seems like a lot of that traffic is going to rock climbing gyms. A lot of people don't seem to understand the fact that rock climbing's been around forever. Everyone's known it exists. Everyone's seen rock climbing. They know how it works. You clip the rope and you go outside and climb on rocks. The sport was never that popular. All of a sudden, rock climbing's in the Olympics and people are like, hold up. What was that? That looks fun. This shit looks fucking miserable. I've seen plenty of movies, whatever about this. I want to do that. I think a lot of people in the rock climbing community are kind of in denial about the fact that realistically, the reason the sport is growing so much is because people are finding out about indoor climbing. Which leads to the third and final section of this video, the community. Now, I can only tell you so much about what to expect with the rock climbing community in your first year, but I will say people tend to generalize about communities in general. They're like, oh my God, the rock climbing community, it's just the most warm, welcoming community, great people. How the fuck do you know? I hate when people do this about any massive community in general. Like, people rock climb all around the world. How would you know if they're good people or not? Realistically, all kinds of people rock climb just like most other activities you do. You're gonna run into all kinds of people. I've met some really, really cool people. Also met some douchebags. So what I will tell you for advice on what to expect is more about the culture around rock climbing and what's acceptable versus not acceptable. Now, culturally, rock climbing gyms are very similar to regular gyms, except when you're doing your workout, everyone is sitting in a line, watching you, and staring at your ass. But there are some things you should not do at the rock climbing gym. The first one being, do not offer help to people. I know it's exciting when you finally sent that V3 you've been working on for a week, and you see some guy come up, and he's really struggling on it, and you're like, hey, I could be a nice guy, I could be a cool guy, offer him some help, tell him how to do it. Well, there are two major reasons you should not do this. The first reason being that subconsciously, there is a part of you. Let's be honest, there is a small part of you that knows that you don't actually want to help. You just want them to know, I can do that boulder. That boulder, the one right there, that one, the one you're struggling on, the one that, got you in tears. I can do it. And the second reason is, you have no idea who this person is or if they want your help or not. I had a situation like this happen to me one time where it was a V4 I was so proud of. And I can still picture it right now. It was one of the hardest V4s I ever did. And some guy just looking really strong and intimidating came up, tried it, and fell. And before he walked away, I was like, hey, hold up, buddy. You don't gotta go anywhere. I come here. And, I grabbed him. And I was like, listen, man, I can help you through this. I've believe it or not, I've done that boulder before. He kindly refused my help and went on his way. And, I kind of took that as him being a little intimidated by my climbing prowess. And it wasn't until the next day that I found out that this guy was much stronger than me. He was one of the best climbers at our gym. He had been doing a 2-hour-long circuit workout where he was trying to do every single boulder in the gym. And believe it or not, he may have been a little bit fatigued. So I go to a different gym now. Similar to this, another thing at rock climbing gyms you probably shouldn't do is just walk up and do the boulder that you see somebody working on. I know it's tempting, okay? This is kind of one of those weird cultural things at rock climbing gyms that some people care about, some people don't. Generally, it's considered kind of rude if somebody's working on something to just go up and just cruise right up it. Like if you're good enough to just climb it in one try, it probably means that the only reason you were doing it was because you saw that they were struggling on it. But at the same time, a lot of people don't really give a shit. For me personally, if I fall on a boulder, nobody else is allowed on that boulder within 20 minutes or you're gonna get slapped. And besides that, the rest of the do's and don'ts are pretty self-explanatory. Like, don't walk under people, don't climb harder boulders without chalk and get your greasy hands all over the crimp the size of a credit card so that it's like an oil slick and it's impossible to use. Don't climb barefoot, don't bring food on the mat, don't jerk off in the gym. Things you would think you weren't allowed to do. So I hope you all learned something from this video, and I know a lot of you are probably like, wait a minute, where's the training advice? I watched this video to get good at climbing. I don't give a shit about the other stuff you talked about. What do I do to train? How the fuck should I know? I'm not a pro climber, alright? I'm not even that good at rock climbing in the first place. I don't even know why people would take advice from me anyway. If you watch this whole video, it probably wasn't even a very good idea. And that being said, there are plenty of pro climbers who have YouTube channels with tons of training tips, all kinds of stuff. I'm of the firm belief that if you want to get really good at something, it's best to take advice from people who are professionals in that field. I mean, realistically, if you stumbled across my channel, you've probably already seen some of these other channels. But if you want one channel in particular that gives pretty good training advice, you can check out Emil's channel right here. Great dude, makes cool training videos and stuff like that. He's a pro climber. I'll see you guys later, I guess.